Om. 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 Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Satgurum Tam Namami Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Vande Guru-paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Om Shri Krishna Paramatmane Namaha. अथ श्रीमद् भगवद गीता दशमोऽध्यायः विभूति योगः श्री भगवानुवाच भूय एव महाबाहो शृणु मे परमं वचः यत्तेऽहं प्रीयमाणाय वक्ष्यामि हितकाम्यया न मे विदुःसुरगणाः प्रभवं न महर्षयः अहमादिर्हि देवानां महर्षीणां च सर्वशः यो मामजमनादिं च वेत्ति लोकमहेश्वरम् असम्मूढः समर्थ्येषु सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते बुद्धिर्ज्ञानमसम्मोहः क्षमा सत्यं दमः शमः सुखं दुःखं भवो भावो भयं चाभयमेव च अहिंसा समता तुष्टिः यशोदानं तपो अहिंसा समता तुष्टिः तपोदानं यशो यशः भवन्ति भावा भूतानां मत्त एव पृथक् विधाः महर्षयः सप्त पूर्वे चत्वारो मनवस्तथा मद्भावा मानसा जाता येषां लोक इमाः प्रजाः एतां विभूतिं योगञ्च मम यो वेत्ति तत्त्वतः सोऽविकम्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः अहं सर्वस्य प्रभवः मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते मां बुधा भावसमन्विताः मच्चित्ता मद्गतप्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयन्तश्च मां नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन मामुपयान्ति ते तेषामेवानुकम्पार्थ अहमज्ञानजं तमः नाशयाम्यात्मभावस्थो ज्ञानदीपेन भास्वता. That's it. Just give me a second. We stopped. We did verse number 7 yesterday. We'll just run through that one more time before we go further. We finished even 8. Yeah, we'll go to 8 and then we'll go to 9. Aham sarvasya prabhavah mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the creator of everything, and because of me, everything is sustained. Thus knowing, the wise men endowed with vision gain me. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. I am the cause for the creation of everything. Aham here means Param Brahma, the one who is called Vasudeva. We have seen the word Vasudeva before, that in which alone all have their being. Like pots have their being in clay, the Jagat has its being in the self-existent Sat Vastu. Everything else depends entirely upon that. And there is only one thing that is self-existent, that is Atma. The self alone is self-existent. Everything becomes evident to it. So, what is self-evident is self-existent, and anything not self-evident cannot be called self-existent. Without my obliging the Vastu with my perception, inference, etc., it is self-evident. And this self-evident Atma alone is self-existent. I will read this again. I think yesterday also we had a little difficulty here. So, everything else, like pots have their being in clay, the Jagat has its being in the self-existent Sat Vastu. Everything else depends entirely upon that. And there is only one thing that is self-existent, that is Atma. The self alone is self-existent. Everything becomes evident to it. Everything becomes evident to it. So what is self-evident is self-existent, and anything not self-evident cannot be called self-existent. So here the Jagat cannot be self-existent, cannot be apart from the Atma, because it is not self-evident. It is Atma alone, which is both self-evident as well as self-existent. Without my obliging the Vastu with my perception, inference, etc., it is self-evident. And this self-evident Atma alone is self-existent. So whether we realize Atma, recognize Atma or not, it still is. Because we have not recognized it, it doesn't cease to exist. Therefore, that is the only Sat Vastu. It is called Vasudeva, that in which everything has its being. Everything becomes evident because of this Vastu. Thus, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha. I am the cause of everything. Prabhava means the source of creation. So, I am the cause for the creation of everything. Somebody may create something, but then its care may fall to someone else. Like modern parents, they are the cause for the children, all right, but then somebody else takes care of them. Similarly, Bhagavan may create everything and then appoint somebody else to be in charge of it. To negate this idea, Bhagavan says, Mattas sarvam pravartate. Because of me, everything is sustained. This Jagat continues to exist and is sustained by me. A created object sustains itself for a length of time, undergoing partial changes, and finally a total change in the form of disappearance. A human body changes partially. So, the person I saw 10 years ago, I may now see as bald, but I can still recognize him. So this change is partial. It is not total. It's a partial change. Later, after death, the body disintegrates. Thus, you find activities of sustenance and disintegration taking place with reference to each and every object. There is no real destruction. There is only the disintegration or partial disintegration of a particular form. This is the Jagat, characterized by its sustenance, its changes, and its disintegration. Then there are the results and their enjoyment. This includes the experiences of pleasure and displeasure, the places of enjoyments and activities, which produce karma phalas that provide situations for enjoyment. All these constitute what we call Jagat. And Bhagavan says, I am not only the cause for the coming into being of this creation, I am also the cause for its sustenance. Because of me alone, everything exists and behaves in its own way. Am I enough audible? I just want to check. Is the clarity good?
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. So I will just read this last bit one more time. So that this is the Jagat characterized by its sustenance, its changes, and its disintegration. Then there are the results and their enjoyment. This includes the experiences of pleasure and displeasure, the places of enjoyments and activities, which produce karma phalas that provide situations for enjoyment. So all this is happening only in the Jagat. The experiences of pleasure, displeasure, then there are results and their enjoyment. So all this, if we understand, there is one Sat Vastu, which is the self-existent Atma, which is also self-evident. And then on top of this is the superimposed Jagat, in which all this is happening. Activities and therefore their karma phalas. Alongside that, punya, papa, the pleasure, displeasure, and enjoyments, activities, All of that, all of that is only in the Jagat. And Bhagavan says, I am not only the cause for coming into being of this creation, I am also the cause for its sustenance. Because of me alone, everything exists and behaves in its own way. Those who have this clear vision are committed to gaining it. Iti matva, thus knowing that this whole Jagat that they encounter is from me alone. Mam bhajante buddhaha. The wise men gain me, recognize me, know me. Shankara defines the wise men here as avagata paramartha tattvaha, by whom the truth of everything is understood as nothing but Paramatma. Bhagavan describes these wise men as bhava samandita, those who are endowed with bhava. The word bhava has different meanings. We have to see the context. Here it is vision. What vision? The definite knowledge of the reality in the form of the understanding, I am Brahman. The meaning of the word I is Brahman, the limitless, which is Jagat Karana. Those who have that clear vision are called Bhava Samanditaha. Mam Bhajante, they gain me. They become one with me because between Ishvara and the Jiva, there is no essential difference. Ishvara is nothing but Param Brahma. Jiva is also Param Brahma. This identity they gain. Further, Machitta Madgata Prana Bodhayantah Parasparam Kathayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Charamanti Cha. Machittaha, whose minds are in me, Madgata Pranaha, whose living is resolved in me, Bodhayantah Parasparam, mutually teaching each other, Kathayantascha Mam, and talking about me, Nityam, always, Tushyanticha, they are satisfied, Ramanticha, and they revel. Machittaha Madgata Pranaha Bodhayantah Parasparam Kathayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanticha Ramanticha. Those whose minds are in me, whose living is resolved in me, teaching one another and always talking about me, they are always satisfied and they revel always. They know Ishvara as the cause of the creation and the truth of that Ishvara as themselves. Understanding the cause-effect, Karana Karya, is the basis of the whole teaching. The effect is inseparable from the cause, which is Brahman. Therefore, the effect is inseparable from Brahman. Because it is inseparable, the effect is mithya. It is only apparent. Therefore, the entire Jagat, which includes the body, mind, sense complex, is a product and is mithya. So, between the cause and the effect, the relationship is very peculiar. The cause is Satya, that which exists independently, and the other, which is called Mithya, depends upon that independently existent principle. Like pot and clay, like your shirt and its cloth. If you analyze it, the cloth is Mithya, the thread is Satya. The thread is Mithya, the fiber is Satya. Fibers are Mithya, particles are Satya. You can go on and on like this. Then, what is Satya? That which does not depend upon anything else. Is there such a thing? Yes, that is Brahman. Thus, through this Karana Karya Viveka, the teaching takes place here. By knowing that Ishvara is everything, they become one with Ishvara. How is that? This second step is interesting. The first step is knowing Ishvara as the maker and the material cause, and therefore that the effect, the creation, is non-separate from him. This is the knowledge of Ishvara. Knowing this, you come to recognize that you are that Ishvara. This is the second step. So the first step is to know that Ishvara is the creator and is the material cause of the whole Jagat. The second step is, after having known that, you come to recognize that you are that Ishvara. If Ishvara is everything, your physical body is Ishvara, your mind is Ishvara, and your senses are also Ishvara. What is not Ishvara? If everything that is created is Ishvara, perhaps consciousness is not Ishvara because it is not created. You cannot say that because what was there before creation was Sat alone. I think this requires one more reading. This. Just give me a second. I will just need 1 minute. Yeah. By knowing that Ishvara is everything, they become one with Ishvara. How is that? This second step is interesting. The first step is knowing Ishvara as the maker and the material cause, and therefore that the effect, the creation, is non-separate from him. This is the knowledge of Ishvara. Knowing this, you come to recognize that you are that Ishvara. This is the second step. Knowing this, you come to recognize that you are that Ishvara. This is the second step. If Ishvara is everything, your physical body is Ishvara, your mind is Ishvara, and your senses are also Ishvara. What is not Ishvara? If everything that is created is Ishvara, perhaps consciousness is not Ishvara because it is not created. You cannot say that because what was there before creation was Sat alone. If consciousness is uncreated, that cannot be differentiated from Sat, the Swarupa of Ishvara. So Sat and Chit are the same. So if consciousness is uncreated, that cannot be different from the Sat, the Swarupa of Ishvara. So Sat and Chit are the same. So Chit is the consciousness here. So Sat is the one that is self-evident, self-existent. So therefore Sat, Chit, and then we have the Ananda. But let's come to that. Therefore, knowing Ishvara, you become one with Ishvara. This is not an ordinary statement. First, it is presented as though something else is the cause. Afterwards, if you analyze the whole thing, it ends up that you are the cause. Your isolation, the separation between the Lord and yourself, is simply swallowed in the vision of Ishvara. Therefore, the vision of Ishvara is the vision of oneself, the vision of the whole. This is so profound, right? So, it ends up that you are the cause. Each one of us is the cause. So your isolation, the separation between the Lord and yourself, is simply swallowed in the vision of Ishvara. Therefore, the vision of Ishvara is the vision of oneself, the vision of the whole. Machittaha, those whose minds are in me, Parameshvara. With their knowledge, the mind naturally is non-separate from Paramatma and therefore cannot go away from Paramatma. People often complain that they understand, but then their mind goes away. But understanding is never away from the mind. The understanding is that the mind is never away from Atma. That is understanding, and nothing is away from Brahman. For those who understand, the mind is never away from me, the whole, because Satya is Atma, and that sustains the mind. Madgata prana. In this expression, the word prana is taken to represent all the sense organs. They are all awake to Ishvara. Therefore, these people are called Madgata pranas. Even though they perceive things distinctly, these wise men see something more. What is seen by the eyes is a form, and this form is distinct from every other form that they see. But then they see something more because they also appreciate that the object perceived, the perception, and the perceiver all have their being in one consciousness, which is self-existent. If there is no ignorance with reference to this fact, one becomes Madgata Prana. Although all the sense activities take place, one is never away from Parameshvara. The perception of the sense organs is not a hindrance to the knowledge of the self. So, being in the world does not in any way hinder the vision of the self. And not going through experiences is not going to bring about the vision. Ignorance is the hindrance, not perception. This explains the existence of Jivan Muktas. Actually, I will read these two paras one more time. Machittaha, those whose minds are in me, Parameshvara. With their knowledge, the mind naturally is non-separate from Paramatma and therefore cannot go away from Paramatma. This knowledge is what? The knowledge that Ishvara is the Jagat Karana and that Ishvara is me. People often complain that they understand, but then their mind goes away. But understanding is never away from the mind. The understanding is that the mind is never away from Atma. That is understanding, that nothing is away from Brahman. If you remember the cause and the effect, the Karya Karana Sambandha. So because this is the effect, the mind, body, senses, the whole Jagat is the effect. The cause is Brahman. The effect is never away from Brahman. So therefore the mind is never away from Brahman. That is understanding, and that nothing is away from Brahman. For those who understand, the mind is never away from me, the whole, because Satya is Atma, and that sustains the mind. Madgata prana. In this expression, the word prana is taken to represent all the sense organs. They are all awake to Ishvara. Therefore, these people are called Madgata pranas. Even though they perceive things distinctly, these wise men see something more. What is seen by the eyes is a form, and this form is distinct from every other form that they see. But then they see something more because they also appreciate that the object perceived, the perception, and the perceiver all have their being in one consciousness, which is self-existent. This statement is worth remembering and contemplating. They see something more. They see the Jagat, they see the distinct objects as they are. They, even in the whole body, they see the legs different from the hands, the eyes, ears, everything is distinct. But then they see something beyond, which is the perceived, the perception, and the perceiver all have their being in one consciousness, which is self-existent. If there is no ignorance with reference to this fact, one becomes Madgata Prana. Although all the sense activities take place, one is never away from Parameshwara. The perception of the sense organs is not a hindrance to the knowledge of the self. If we recollect Arjuna's question about how is a Sthita Prajna, how does he eat, talk, walk about, that was a question in the second chapter. And then Bhagavan goes on to explain how the Sthita Prajna is. Right? So the perception of the sense organs is not a hindrance to the knowledge of the self. So being in the world does not in any way hinder the vision of the self. So you might be going around about your normal daily activities. I'm talking of a person who is enlightened, the jnani. He might just be a very normal person, moving around, perceiving things, doing things. But his vision is rooted in that, in the knowledge of the self. So being in the world does not in any way hinder the vision of the self. And not going through experiences is not going to bring about the vision. Ignorance is the hindrance, not perception. Those who do not have that hindrance are Madchittah Madgata Prana. In other words, Shankara says that even for 1 second, their lives are not away from Ishvara. It must be from that. I think it's a typo there. So even for 1 second, their lives are not away from Ishvara because they have this firm understanding. They recognize. Prana is also breathing, therefore can stand for living, Jivana. So Madgata Pranas are also those whose living is non-separate from Ishvara. Their life is resolved in Ishvara. It means there is no division of spiritual life and material life for them. Some people have a peculiar philosophy that life has 2 separate compartments as spiritual and secular. There are no such compartments. Everything is one whole alone. For one who knows, life is non-separate from this vision. Whatever you know about yourself is what you are. And if that happens to be the whole, how are you going to be away from it? Do what you will, you cannot be away from it because the one thing you can never be away from is yourself. You can be away from one object or the other, but never from yourself. Those who understand this clearly are Madgata Pranas, Madchittas. I will read this one more time. Prana is also breathing. See, those who do not have that hindrance of that knowledge, that ignorance, that you are not the self. Yeah.
Yeah.
The hindrance that you are never away from Parameshwara. Whatever is happening, whatever experiences you're going through, they're all happening in
The
Parameshwara.
person,
They're all just superposed. Yeah, they're all in the Jagat, but they're all because of Parameshwara, they're in Parameshwara. All that is just happening. But the moment you recognize that, that is because of knowledge. But though ignorance is what hinders that. So those who do not have that hindrance are Machittaha Madgata Prana. In other words, Shankara says that even for 1 second, their lives are not away from Ishvara.
even the last one you did, it's like we are not away from ourselves. That was really nice, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll repeat that. I'll
yeah.
read this paragraph again. Prana is also breathing. So this is another interpretation of Madgata Prana. The first interpretation was that it means sense organs and their perceptions. The second is breathing. Therefore, prana can stand for living, jivana. So, Madgata pranas are also those whose living is non-separate from Ishvara. Their life is resolved in Ishvara. It means there is no division of spiritual life and material life for them. Some people have a peculiar philosophy that life has two separate compartments, as spiritual and secular. There are no such compartments. Everything is one whole alone. For one who knows, life is non-separate from this vision. Whatever you know about yourself is what you are. And if that happens to be the whole, how are you going to be away from it? Do what you will, you cannot be away from it, because the one thing you can never be away from is yourself. You can be away from one object or the other, but never from yourself. Those who understand this clearly are Matkata Pranas, Matchittas. So you cannot be away from yourself. In ignorance, you see the separation between yourself and everybody else. You see the separation also between Jiva and Ishvara. Whereas when that hindrance is removed, that knowledge is there, recognizing Ishvara as yourself becomes a reality, that you've recognized that, then you are the whole. And if you are the whole, how can you be away from the whole? So everything is happening in you.
Yeah, this prana is also breathing, you know, which is the jivana. It's like without prana, you know, we are not alive. So you cannot be
Yeah.
away from that either. Yeah. So that it's really nice. These two words, matkata pranas and matchitas. The mind is not away from you, away from Ishvara, and the sense organs and prana. Mm, very nicely
How do,
explained.
yeah, this verse also is very beautiful. How do
Mm.
such people live? Ramanti, they revel. How? Parasparam bodhayantaha, mutually teaching each other. What else can they do? Those who want to learn, they teach. Mam katayantah cha, talking about the glories of me, Parameshwara. When do they do this? They do it always. Nityam. Katayantaha is different from Bodhayantaha. Bodhana implies a class situation or a discussion. Kathana is just descriptive. There is no teaching. When you describe the glories of the Lord, his knowledge, his strength, and so on, it is called Kathana. In talking about me, whether teaching or describing, they discover a joy, and in that they revel, ramanti, and enjoy satisfaction, tushyanti. Reveling does not require anything but Parameshwara. He has used two words here, ramanti and tushyanti, which have a similar but slightly different meaning. Ramanti is with reference to the external world, so it involves people here. Tushyanti is with reference to oneself. They have found satisfaction, so they do not need to go after things in order to be happy. There are two ways of going after things. One can go after things for happiness, or one can happily go after things. Going after things to discover happiness generally does not work. And if you are happy with yourself as a person, then you need not go after things. It does not produce any result for you. But then you can do things joyfully. Shankara gives an example of how they revel in talking about Ishvara. Suppose a person is someone very beloved to him. What would be the joy he discovers in conversing with, in being in the company of his beloved? With such a joy or more, the one who appreciates Ishvara revels in sharing his understanding of Ishvara. This can include even those who do not have that knowledge, but discover their joy in teaching and sharing what they see of the glories of the Lord. Even when you see a beautiful flower, you can simply say the flower is beautiful, or you can see something more than that. The beauty of the flower is the glory of Ishvara. Wherever there is any ray of glory, anything striking, that is where Ishvara is present for you to recognize. Thus, the verse can be about the wise men or the jignasus, those who want to be wise and who are after this knowledge. They share with others whatever they have come to know, and in the process, they discover further clarity. This is so like what it's describing the group we are in. Not just this group, every other group or people who talk and who revel and who teach each other mutually. Only when you discuss what you think you know, do you discover what you do know. Clarity takes place only when you begin to part with the knowledge you have, sharing it with another person. So it's so important how in this Manana, each one of us shares. Only then do you discover what you do know. Because there is a pair of eyes looking at you, they become a check for you. If there are any fallacies in your thinking, it will become very clear. Any vague areas in your thinking also become very evident. Because if you commit a mistake, those eyes will reveal that something is wrong. When you see that, your mind becomes alert. It begins to discover those areas of vagueness. The sharing of knowledge can also be mutual in a discussion among seekers. Both are part of Brahma Bhyasa, the sadhana for knowing Brahman, which is not different from yourself. There is no other sadhana. It is not something that is going to emerge at some time in the heat of meditation. The self is yourself. It is never hidden at any time. The only thing that covers it is ignorance. Therefore, listen and reflect on what you have understood by sharing it with others and in discussions among yourselves.
Can you please read that?
I
No, from that. How do you? How do such people live?
Yeah, I
From
will
there.
repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
This is actually a reflection of what is going on every morning in the Bhagavad Gita Manana session. But I think this should open our eyes to the fact it is so important not just to listen, but also to share.
Right.
We'll just go ahead. Ramanti, they revel. How? Parasparam bodhayantaha, mutually teaching each other. What else can they do? Those who want to learn, they teach, which is why Nana had mentioned he saw the future that each one of us should start teaching Bhagavad Gita to whoever is willing to learn. So those who want to learn, they teach. Mam katayantahacha, talking about the glories of me, Parameshwara. When do they do this? They do it always, nityam. Katayantaha is different from bodayantaha. Bodhana implies a class situation or a discussion. Kathana is just descriptive. There is no teaching. I am reminded, like when we are sharing also, once in a while we have stories that Dr. Mara shares, Bela shares, Dr. even Percy G. So when we are sharing these stories, there's nothing but talking about their glories. So in Kathana, there is no teaching. It is only descriptive. When you describe the glories of the Lord, his knowledge, his strength, and so on, it is called Kathana. In talking about me, whether teaching or describing, they discover a joy, and in that they revel, ramanti, and enjoy satisfaction, tushyanti. Reveling does not require anything but Parameshwara. He has used two words here, ramanti and tushyanti, which have a similar but slightly different meaning. Ramanti is with reference to the external world. So it involves people here. Tushyanti is with reference to oneself. So Ramanti is like, for instance, in this class here, where we're talking about Ishvara, we're teaching each other mutually. That gives us the satisfaction. That is Ramanti. Whereas Tushyanti is with reference to oneself. They have found satisfaction, so they do not need to go after things in order to be happy. There are two ways of going after things. One can go after things for happiness, or one can happily go after things. So either for or out of happiness. Going after things to discover happiness generally does not work. And if you are happy with yourself as a person, then you need not go after things. It does not produce any result for you. But then you can do things joyfully. If you remember that story of the butcher and that lady, they're doing their work, and that the monk who is
Yeah.
meditated and gets that skill, he goes. They're doing their swakarma and they're doing it joyfully. So they're already in that tushyanti state. They don't need anything else. So
Yeah, just go about doing their own things.
And they're doing it joyfully.
Yeah.
Shankara gives
It's
an
also
example.
like more like a karma yoga parts, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Not expecting anything.
Shankara gives an example of how they revel in talking about Ishvara. Suppose a person is with someone very beloved to him. What would be the joy he discovers in conversing with, in being in the company of his beloved? With such a joy or more, the one who appreciates Ishvara revels in sharing his understanding of Ishvara. With such a joy or more. Imagine each of us, of course, has someone that we truly love, very beloved to us, right? So if you're in that company of that person, what would be the joy he discovers in conversing with, in being in the company of his beloved? With such a joy or more, the one who appreciates Ishvara revels in sharing his understanding of Ishvara, which is why we have this beautiful Guru Shishya Parampara. If this was not there, the sharing was not there, we would only have enlightened people who are like just enlightened. There's no connect between them and people who are not enlightened. This can include even those who do not have that knowledge, but discover their joy in teaching and sharing what they see of the glories of the Lord. Even when you see a beautiful flower, you can simply say the flower is beautiful, or you can see something more than that. The beauty of the flower is the glory of Ishvara. Wherever there is any ray of glory, anything striking, that is where Ishvara is present for you to recognize. Thus, the verse can be about the wise men or the jignasus, those who want to be wise and who are after this knowledge. They share with others whatever they have come to know, and in the process, they discover further clarity. Only when you discuss what you think you know, do you discover what you do know. Isn't that? So when you're sharing, actually, it is like there are, he talks of those two eyes. So they become like a mirror for you. This class, this Manana class itself is like a mirror. So it reflects how much you know, how much you understand, the clarity. So it is very important to share. Clarity takes place only when you begin to part with the knowledge you have, sharing it with another person. Because there is a pair of eyes looking at you, they become a check for you. If there are any fallacies in your thinking, it will become very clear. Any vague areas in your thinking also become very evident. Because if you commit a mistake, those eyes will reveal that something is wrong. When you see that, your mind becomes alert. It begins to discover those areas of vagueness. The sharing of knowledge can also be mutual. So I'm coming back to this. It begins to discover those areas of vagueness. So those are all the pratibandhakas that we have to remove, that get removed when we do manana. Shravana is when you just listen. Manana is when you clarify all these areas, gray areas, doubts and everything. And then nididhyasana can happen. When you finally removed all those gray areas, vagueness, all the obstacles, then nididhyasana can happen. The sharing of knowledge can also be mutual in a discussion among seekers. Both are part of Brahma Bhyasa, the sadhana for knowing Brahman, which is not different from yourself. There is no other sadhana. It is not something that is going to emerge at some time in the heat of meditation, because people have different ideas of enlightenment, right? So it is not something that will emerge at some time in the heat of meditation. The self is yourself. It is never hidden at any time. The only thing that covers it is ignorance. Therefore, listen and reflect on what you have understood by sharing it with others and in discussions among yourselves. I can see that this is Swamiji giving it up, right, to all his brahmacharis. So he's telling them, listen and reflect on what you have understood by sharing it with others and in discussions among yourselves. So this we extrapolate to ourselves for this group. So from now on, I think whoever is part of this manana that on that day, it will be important for us to share, even if it's a single line, does not matter. We'll begin sharing. So only when you share will that clarity dawn inside. Will those areas of gray areas all get removed? Because this is a beautiful platform where we can express what we have understood. And if there is any more clarity required, that is what we can get. Because there is that pair of eyes looking at us. The pair of eyes is the group, of course, right? So shall I go ahead to Shloka 10, or is there anyone who wants a repeat? I think what we'll do is we'll stop here. It's, I know, 5 minutes more, but it will give each one of us time to reflect and share. We'll do verse 10 tomorrow. Bhagwan's commitment to those who are committed to knowing Bhagavad Tattva. Maybe I will just read the chap shloka and the meaning, and then we'll go to the previous verse. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayati te. Tesham satata yuktanam, for those who are always committed to me, priti purvakam bhajatam, seeking with love, tam buddhi yogam, that vision of knowledge, dadami, I give, ena, whereby, te mam upayanti, they reach me. Tesham satata yuktanam priti purvakam bhajatam, tam buddhi yogam dadami, ena te mam upayanti. For those who are always committed to me, seeking me with love, I give that vision whereby they reach me. So the reason why we're all here doing this manana and attending these classes is that we're all mumukshus in various degrees, probably, right? So, but in order for us to maximize our effort and get the result that we want, this sharing becomes very important. In order to stay committed, in order to seek with love. And then Bhagavan says he gives the vision that they can reach me. So the two verses we did today was 8 and 9. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the creator of everything, and because of me, everything is sustained. Thus knowing, the wise men endowed with vision gain me. And then, Machitta Madgata Prana Bodhayantah Parasparam Kathayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Charamanti Cha. Those whose minds are in me, whose living is resolved in me, teaching one another and always talking about me, they are always satisfied and they revel always. So we saw the meanings of Machitta, Madgata Prana, the two interpretations of Madgata Prana. And then, how do such people live? Parasparam Bodhayantaha, Kathayantaha. And then they get what? Ramanti and they Tushyan. Yeah. So let's close our eyes and reflect on all that we have learned, understood, and let each one of us, the 10 of us, each one of us share one takeaway. Even if it's very brief, doesn't matter. Jai Gurudev. So let's all share.
Jai Gurudev, when you're consumed with the divine love, everything looks so magical here. Flowers blooming, fruits out of season coming, everything. Like Sufi saints, they always say everything is so beautiful. God, everywhere He's there. This cosmos, this earth is reeling in the cosmos. It's such a joy. Everything celebrating here. I feel that way. Thank you.
Very beautiful. So when you recognize the beauty, when you go beyond just the beauty and see the creator behind the beauty and recognize that all that is Ishvara's glory, that gives you that aspect of that machitta. You're forever thinking about him. You're reveling in him, right?
Yeah. That was very nice. That's very. I also, when I go for a walk, like we go up the hill, the creek coming down and the small waterfalls, I always say that, oh, this is for, we want to keep a Perumal here, and then where the water comes, so it'd be nice to have Shivalingam here. We always think of that way, or because whenever the nature is so nice, and like remember the introduction part of it where they said wherever there is beauty is, you think of we have always the temple or some kind of a shrine, or on top of the hill, things like that. It's naturally, we get this kind of ideas when we go around a tree, oh, this corner would be nice to have a Ganesha, something like that. So I thought of that, we have read the same thing here in the glories, and that 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 thing, comes to your mind. You're thinking about God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That is what
this,
they said. Even for a
mhm,
second, they are not away from him. Because you
right,
cannot be away from yourself. You can be distinct. You can see an object distinctly. But when you know that you are the whole, and that is what you are, you
yeah.
cannot be away from yourself. That's such a profound statement.
Yeah, it seems like, yeah, it's very nice statement as well. Like you cannot be away from yourself, and then how they related the mind cannot be away from Chitta, like away from
From Ishvara.
Ishvara and all the senses and prana, things like that. So they basically say nothing is away from him. So even as a human, we are thinking this way, but even the animals, like they do the same thing too. Like in the morning, you see they're nice and fresh. When the sun comes up, everything, the life comes back. Flowers and every little thing, sounds. I mean, looks good. Um, but again, the reveling, like the Ramanti and Tushyanti, the two words they were mentioning, right? The Ramanti is revel, like they revel, like meaning like we talk to each other about uh,
Ramanti is with respect to the outside. Yeah, it
outside,
requires,
the external things.
external. Tushanti is
External.
something within, that inner satisfaction, inner joy.
Inner joy, right? So, but again, the revel means the revel in ourselves, like the self meaning, like recognizing Ishvara, right?
Mhm.
So that
It is,
that one,
it is our experience, no, that joy. You cannot probably express it, but then it's in all our experience, that happiness, that joy that wells up within.
mm,
Like as right now, as we're talking about this, there is that joy, that inner, that subtle aspect within,
mm,
that that comes up. That is why bodhayanta
revel.
parasparam
Yeah,
katayantascha.
Parasparam Bodhayantaka.
Yeah,
So by mutually teaching each other, that's what that was. Okay. So
yeah.
then Mom Katayantaka, that's when you were saying we are describing it, telling a story, and in revealing his, I mean, basically talking about his glories,
Correct.
and you kind of like feeling it brings to you, so that basically that mom, sorry, Machittaga Matta
Madgata prana.
Prana, Madgata Pranas, Parasparam Bodhayantaga, and the Katayantaga, Cha Ramantacha, and what else?
Dushyanti cha ramanti cha.
Dushyathicha Ramantacha. Yeah. Nityam Ramantacha. So you are doing it every day, like now that we are doing it every day, I believe me, this 1 hour, whether we are doing meditation or not, like this 1 hour, our concentration is pretty much in it, uh, e- at least I was thinking about it when we are reading. Oh, I'm thinking about dhyana and all that stuff. So how much are we able to do in a given day? At least this whole hour that we are doing, um, at least we are not concentrating on anything else but this. But how much gets in my head is a little different. But so,
Yeah.
I can understand what when I'm here, and then I may forget like by tomorrow, but then at least when I'm paying attention, it gets. I can
Correct.
really get it.
That does not go waste, Dr. Mara. So don't worry. He gives
Right.
us the assurance, no? In chapter 6, he says,
Yeah.
all this effort that goes in, it does not go waste. So my devotees, the seekers, will not get destroyed.
No. Yeah. That's really nice. But we wonder, like studying for exam, same way. When you read one time, you're not going to get everything, and more you read, you get more clarity. Um, that is really nice. Now we are paying attention to each and every word of it. It's going to be helpful to us when we review it, and gives us the previous verse you mentioned. That was I am everything, and because of me everything is sustained. And
Yeah.
what did we basically that he mentioned about the Atma is like self-existent. Anything self-existent is to be evident to it, but not evident to it, it cannot exist. Is that what we read, right?
Anything which is
From
not
Sarvasya.
self-evident is not self-existent. That is what is
Right.
the
Right.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Then
the
he
self
says,
alone
Aham.
is self-existent. Everything becomes evident to it.
Right. But when it's not self-evident, cannot be called self-existent. Anything not self-evident, not called a self-existent. So obviously something has to be evident to be self-existent. So Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha, that is, I am the cause of everything. That's the meaning of that one. And Matat Sarvam Pravartate is because of me, everything is sustained.
Right.
Matat Sarvam Pravartate.
He's not, what is that term used these days? Outsourcing his creation to someone else to take care. He is the one taking care of it. It's not like even parents and these IT companies that outsource their thing to
Right.
other countries and other people. So he creates, he also sustains.
Sustains. Wise men endowed with the vision, they gain me. So, iti matva bhajante mam Buddha
Buddha Bhava Samanvita.
Buddha, okay, Buddha Bhava Samanvitaka. Okay. So Bhava Samanvitaka is
Buddha is wise man. Bhava Samannitaha is endowed with the vision.
Vision. They will gain me. Okay. Yeah. I mean, here much. Go ahead.
Today,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Dr. Mara. After that, I will tell.
No, that's pretty much it. But you know, that sustaining part he described a little bit more, and then having the here you mentioned the yoga means the vision in this particular one. Where this one we read.
Right.
Somewhere else we read something else. Oh yeah. No, I was reading something in 6th chapter. Where the yogi, and sannyasi, they're talking about, right? So when he says yogi, that meant there was a karma yogi. Not,
in different contexts, there is the different interpretation
exactly.
of the word yoga. So we have to be in the contextual frame. We'll have to understand. We cannot quote it out. We cannot use that over here, probably, because see, in the train of knowledge, as he's giving in that teaching, at some point, Atma is the mind, Atma is the body, whereas Atma in some other context is Ishvara, is Brahman. So we need to look at it that context. Otherwise, we'll end up having a bit of confusion. So today, what I was thinking was, if you don't mind, all those that are there in the group today, at least for this shloka, because he says, Dushyanti cha ramanti cha, bodhayantav kathayantav parasparam. I would request each one of us to unmute and share at least one line, one takeaway. What has struck you in this 1 hour that you were there? Whatever struck you, just one line. Maybe it's important for us to start sharing. Those of us who are not yet started to share. If it's possible, I know some of you might be at work, not possible, but all of you who can, please unmute and share.
Jai Gurudev. I joined only at past, so I think I missed the most of the shloka, but what I heard towards the end about sharing, so what I'm going to share now may not be entirely from the shloka, but my experience of sharing. Before, I never used to share because I just thought, okay, I got it and that's it. That is the knowledge. But I've got it, that's enough. Or I thought that was the knowledge. But later, when I heard about this Manana, where you share and each one's intellect gets something. And when we all share what we have got, then there is more learning happening. So that was something very new to me. So since then, I have, as far as possible, I attend Manana sessions and share whatever I have learned. And I have also immensely learned from everyone else's sharing. So this is what I wanted to say. And this last shloka where he says, why we need to share? Because there's a pair of eyes looking at you. That was very powerful for me today. Because I was just coming after teaching a happiness program, first Kriya today. And I'm still in that, that elevated state. So when I heard this, that there's a pair of eyes looking at you, something has happened inside me. And I feel very extra happy now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. That's so wonderful, Suma. Dr. Renu says, whole universe is Ishvara. Beautiful.
Jai Gurudev. Here,
Yes.
my takeaway is the mind can never be separate from Ishvara. This one second also you are non-separate from Paramatma. Which is, cannot go away from him even if you want also. People often they complain they can't, that mind goes away here and there. It's just not possible because we are already in him. So that is something.
Wow. Thank you.
So beautiful. Sarlaji, Dr. Savita, Shankariji, and Bela. I think Bela is there or she left? She left. So, and Madhuriji, please, today's session will devote to each one of us sharing. Doesn't matter if you're not able to do chapter 6, but let's begin that sharing.
I think with devotion, our that intellect is very clear. So whenever we are in a devotion, or we are means we are when we are it's like when we are bhajanti him, like we are जैसे प्रार्थना होता है तो हम प्रार्थना से अलग नहीं हो सकते, वैसे जब हम लोग कुछ भी डिस्कस करते हैं तो वो जो डिस्कशन है हमारे पूरे तन जैसे पूरे हम वो ही बन जाते हैं और क्लैरिटी ओपन होने लगती है. Whatever we are talking about in devotion about him to each other, so we get clarity about him and the highest. What I understood today, my words may be different, but we cannot be separate from him, and our clarity in intellect will make us move further and further, and we will not feel that separation anytime. And the way we हम जैसे उसको भजते हैं तो हम वही बन जाते हैं, and we will reach towards him, reach to him. So nothing is away from the Ishvara. Even second, we are not away from Ishvara.
So beautiful. Thank you. So what comes to my mind when we talk of Kathayantaha and this talking of devotion that Sarlaji so beautifully mentioned is it's about time, I think, that we try and fix up some schedule for Bhagavatam, where it is all about the glories of the Lord, right? That bhakti, the element of bhakti is sparkled with listening to, talking about, and reading about the Bhagavatam. So let's think about that. Yeah. So I would request everybody else also to share. Madhuri ji, Shankari, and Dr. Savita.
Jai Gurudev. I'm actually busy with assisting the advanced course. Took the morning sadhana and opened up just now, 10 minutes back. But 100% what shared by someone, that this sharing thing actually, we are in the flow, we are listening the shloka and all the explanations. But the moment you separate yourself and think about it and listen to somebody else's experiences, that gives so much different levels and different understanding, different what you can say, facets of the same shloka, and that really gets ingrained in us very beautifully. And then suddenly we say, wow, this is what the best thing about Manana is. And then we thank so much to Brahmaraji and Nanaji and everybody. that the moment it touches your heart, that is the moment when really we are going through, or the Bhagavad Gita is going through us. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Yeah.
Shankari. Every day morning when I go, this is such a blessing for me. And I always, the whole day, this is like a background, the whole knowledge is. And every day means I keep on reminding myself what I have learned today and all. And it really helps. And the journey is now changed myself, I can see. And what I used to feel also still I'm doing. So why not to convey this to my means colleagues, friends, and family members also. But sometimes I used to feel bad also because they used to oppose, no, no, this is not possible. How this is in books, it's okay, practical life. But then sometimes then I stopped also. Maybe I should not. Why? But still, again, I started in fact sharing all these things. This is a two benefit. One, I am reminding myself, like when you are telling something to others, it is actually more you're telling yourself also just to go stay with this. So now with this today's knowledge, that means I should not stop whether they like it or not. But one day, but I have seen so many other my colleagues also. They are also in the same path, and I was not aware of it. Means now we I always discuss and all. So now we all discuss all about it, and it's such a beautiful. It is really very good, and I'm really thank you so much to all of you. Mm, this is the
Very
means from where
beautiful.
I'm getting this knowledge.
Very,
And
very beautiful.
let me just tell you, I leave from my office at 7:30 because
Mm.
the distance is quite long, and 8:30 I reach this office sometimes quarter to 9. And while driving only, I am going through this. And the whole every day it is like this big blessing. I only thanks to God and all of you. That's such a beautiful. Earlier days also I used to go, but it was not like this. With this knowledge, the life is absolutely changed, and I keep on means reminding the whole day. It's like background, as Nanaji said, the background should be your kitapa. So that's what I believe and live. Jai Gurudev.
So beautiful. I'm so glad you have found, it is like birds of the same feather flock together, no? So you will find actually that there are people that in your circle who are also like-minded. Slowly you will get to know, like how Shankariji so beautifully said, she found that several of her colleagues are also into this knowledge. Very good. So anybody else needs to share?
Yeah, I am only left. I think everyone
Yeah.
has shared.
You normally
Actually,
share, Dr. Savita. I know you may have been at work. I'm not sure your
no,
situation.
I am not at work. This is the whole time I donate to this class only. I don't do anything. Sometimes I have to make tea when the person is not there in his absence. Otherwise, I am sitting with my books only.
Mm.
It is only that I was, as I was reading chapter 6. So in verse number 14, we read Mat Chitta and Mat Paraha. So Mat Chitta it is the same like what is mentioned here, thinking of me all the time. But Mat Paraha and Mad Gata Pranaha, it is that Matpara became more clearer after reading this Mad Gata Prana. Like Matpara is, he is the ultimate goal in that verse for the object of meditation. Like if you are sitting for a meditation, so you should have a Mad Chitta and a Mad Paraha attitude. So that Mad Paraha, it is the Ishvara is the ultimate goal. Seeking that and having that in mind, you sit for meditation. And how this reading this Mat Gata Prana, it became more clearer when we read this sentence that they see something more because they also appreciate that the object perceived, the perception, and the perceiver all have their being in one consciousness, which is self-existent. So this verse became more clearer, and it's it how it settles in you that the verses, they are so interconnected. I was just relating to this, that how if you have this knowledge only, then only you perceive things well, and you can like the application is made more easier. maybe I'm not able to convey properly.
Conveyed it so beautifully, and the importance of staying with this knowledge and sharing again is so important, because you have mentioned that clarity that dawns, right? So the
Yeah.
more and more we are with this, that is the whole purpose of Manana, is to remove all those shades of gray and bring in that clarity.
Yeah,
And
that ignorance which was the ignorance which is still there, of course. You know, by step it becomes clearer as you are reading, because you know we many a times we see what we are reading in chapter 10. Oh, we read this in previous chapter also. So
Right.
it's a very like the quiz you have planned. It has worked amazingly for me, because you know, revising the chapter and reading at our own this with our own
On your
perception.
own.
Yeah,
Correct.
on your own, it gives you again, and maybe we are revising it more, so it's linking the chain is so properly that you know, it's very beautiful. Like,
I
I
can
think
see
this
what
quiz
you're saying.
should be going on every month or maybe in 2 months, but I think monthly it should be there.
The quiz. Yeah, I know. I should.
Maybe only we have to select for quiz only 10 slokas probably. That way we'll be ready for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would make the subject so clear to you that you know you'll by No, heart. Yeah, exactly. That's what we need to do. You know, like I was also reviewing it, but then
Because,
it takes
taking out
time.
the
Questions from that book, though it many questions are, if you Google up, you get many questions there, but you don't find that joy uh, uh, in those questions. When you yourself study and you take out questions, you feel more complete and more uh, like
that
you
Tushyanti is there.
right. Yeah.
Tushyanti happens.
I wanted to know this quiz thing. I missed it actually.
Yeah. We are planning a quiz on August 1st, which is Tuesday. So
Huh?
instead of the same time it will be. So we are focusing on chapters 6 and 9. Although there will be some general Bhagavad Gita questions that most people know. So where the two chapters we are dealing with are chapter 6 and 9. So it is recommended that all of us go through the PDF 6 and 9 as much as possible. And you can also come up with questions. We already have about 50 plus questions, 54 or so. Nana has given some questions. Dr. Savita has contributed. Dr. Mara has given. I have put down some. So we still can take more questions. So if not one session, if you're not able to complete everything, we can keep the remaining for the next session. So please, like Savita ji said, even yesterday I was reading. Yesterday was my day off. I said I'm going to start with chapter 6, and the Tushyanti that was happening inside, it was so beautiful. When you're reading it by yourself, you've already listened to this maybe once, twice. We did chapter 6, and we're doing it the third time now. But then there is a different level of joy. It's a joy, actually. It's difficult to say it in words, but and I was able to stay put. And you know that the fact that when you're doing your nitya karma, how that gap is not filled by anything which is not useful. Maybe I would have done something which is completely out of this knowledge, but then that time that I spent, those 2 hours that I spent, was so full of just this. So I would recommend that each one of us goes to the PDF, even if it is for a short time, and does this self-reading. That will be good. I think Prem is there. Prem, do you want to share one last brief takeaway before we close the session? So this thing was, I think maybe you joined in late. We're talking about the shloka which says, Kathayantascha mam, yeah. Machitta madgata prana bodhayantah parasparam. Kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Right? So if you want to share one or two lines, please go ahead.
1 minute. Those whose mind, this is the one, those whose minds are in me.
Yes, yes.
I don't know. I joined late. Might take time, but this one, I think this is very clear. No, all of us can easily follow. Those whose minds are in me. So, whose living is resolved in me, teaching one another, and always talking about me. They are always satisfied and they revel always. So here, my take here is that yes, we have to, or we currently all of us, these group members, we all know that we are nothing but part of that super consciousness, and whether we talk after the class to one another about Krishna or anything, but behind the back of our mind, usually this thing always will be like humming in our minds. So when we have this humming sound inside, like the tambura, that whatever happens for good. At the same time, it doesn't teach us complacency. We need to do entirely what we need to do in the material world, but always with that consciousness that everything we need always to be connected to that super connection, which is like the Wi-Fi, which is the super Wi-Fi. We are connected to that. We are part of that, and all this we are doing is we are doing. See, it sounds very complex, but it's very simple and subtle. What requires is the clarity of thought here. Once we get into that kind of situation, we know that this body, this mind, this Panchabhutas, everything is again part of that. Here, suddenly the example of a spider strikes me. A spider creates the entire web. It lives on the web created by its own secretions, and once the job is done, it again takes back, swallows the entire web and moves somewhere else. In the same way, that super consciousness, we come out of that super consciousness, that Krishna Tattva, if we want to call it, and we come out of that Tattva, we are created by that Tattva, we revel in it, and that Krishna also goes around us as if he is enjoying our company. And when the time comes, we all will get back into the same Tattva. It is again the Vishwarupa Sandarshana, like we come from that Tattva, whatever name we call it, Krishna Tattva or the Devi or the cosmos. We come from that, we go back in that. Once we keep this particular truth in our mind and we believe it, that's it. What is there more to know and learn? This is my take on this. Thank you, Mario.
Thank you. So today seemed like a Manana class because everybody shared, and it doesn't matter if we can cater more time to this if 15 minutes is not sufficient. I think from tomorrow onwards, let us each share at least one takeaway. That will be wonderful.
Yeah, 1 second, and this Prem Bhaiya, whatever shared, no, this immediately this example came in my mind, that chessboard, no, all these things, they come out of the box and they play different roles. Somebody is pawn, somebody is king, somebody is elephant, somebody, but they're made up of the same material. They go back to the same box, they come out of the same box, but on the board, on the stage of this our life, they play different roles. So immediately we
True.
can connect to that chessboard and all the
True.
what you tell them, that king queen. In Marathi we say सोंगट्या. all the क्या बोलते हैं उसको, that वो खेलते हैं ना चेस के ऊपर, बोर्ड के ऊपर, वो उसको
Pawns.
क्या बोलते हैं, pawns.
Pawns, no?
Yeah, pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Jai Gurudev. This
Jai.
example will really make the things very simple and clear about the whole play of consciousness.
So very good. So we'll continue this good job, because I am just reminded of that Subhashitani that China used to always mention. Acharya padamadatte padam shishyasvamedhaya padam sabrahmacharibhyo padam kalakramenahi. 1/4 of the knowledge we get comes from the Acharya, the teacher. Another quarter is from our own understanding. Another quarter comes from Sab-Brahmacharibhyo, from co-students talking, discussing, sharing. And that is exactly what this stanza is talking about, what Bhagavan is talking about. And then the other quarter comes Kalakramenahi. With time, slowly that clarity will dawn. So on that note, I think we'll stop here today. Like there is a saying it's a tradition that Dvitiya Vignam, it's called Dvitiya Vignam. That is, anything good you start, you continue the second day as well, the second time as well, without a break. So in the same talking, let this beautiful Manana where everybody contributed continue tomorrow as well, and let it be a constant regular feature. Jai Gurudev. Today we don't have time for chapter 6, but never mind, we'll close here today. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Gurudev.